Hello and welcome to another Solana tutorial. Today we're gonna continue where we left off in the previous video, talking about features, and we're finally gonna uncover the mystery of why executable program accounts are suddenly writable and what feature made that happen. Because I'm pretty sure that must be feature gated, but I couldn't really find the right feature in the previous video, so we're gonna dig a little deeper until we figure this out today. So you do want to watch the previous video first, otherwise all of this might not make sense. We're gonna continue where we left off in the previous video, where we deploy two programs to a local test validator and have one of the executable program accounts be given as a writable argument to an instruction of the other program. And the first thing we got to do is replicate the error that I know existed some time ago when we were writing two executable program accounts. It can't be so difficult to figure out where that change comes from, when that change was introduced. So here's our status. We've got all the features activated. And in our demo program, this one, we're gonna cargo build and then Solana deploy the build, and then we're gonna call this program. Oh, Solana program deploy. There we go. Okay, so the prog is deployed. We're calling the prog, and all of that works just fine. So we can have another program writable. But maybe for this to not work, we need to actually write to the program. I mean, we did write to it, just that we then undo this, because otherwise it doesn't work. But here's a question for you. How can we still write to that account without being the owner? Because that's our problem here, right? This account is obviously owned by the BPF upgradable loader, so we can't directly write to it. This is a bit of a hack that was possible before SIMD 2.19. Without that hack, how can we still write to that account? So the question is, what field of the account can any program write to in a specific way by increasing a number? Huh? You get it? You get it? Yes, the Lamperts field. Because anybody can credit Lamperts to any account unless the account is write locked, and program accounts used to be that. Also the system program. Maybe let's start and write Lamperts to that account. So if that account is writable, instead of doing that weird what we're gonna do is transfer Lamperts. And for that we need another account, the sender account. Let's say this is account 1. I'll have to do either a CPI or create an account for that program beforehand. I think I create an account manually, such that here I can then just say the receiver account is account 0 and the receiver gets Lamperts, receiver Lamperts plus, I don't know, 1, and the sender -1, something like that. The important part is that we write to the receiver. So let's call that program, but we will need to from here get create account instruction and create a new account. Can generate key per signer. So new account, Lamperts, doesn't really matter, I don't know, a bit such that we can move stuff, 0.01 or whatever. And the payer will be this guy, and the program address, that will be my program address, so we assign it to my program, and the space 0. Okay, like this, that should work now, right? So let's build, deploy, and run this. No, does not work. We panic. The provided account is writable. Of course it doesn't work. I didn't provide the right accounts, so I need to provide a second account here, like this. So the first one is the receiver and the second one is the sender, and this will be my new account address. And this must also be writable. Yeah, but like that it shouldn't panic. There we go. Look at that, the account is writable, and guess what? I think we wrote to that. I mean, the post balances, yeah, that the third account, this program account has one more. This has the same, this has the same. This account was created and we put those on there, but one went there and all of it was taken from here, really. That's cool. You still don't see it really nicely. Let me quickly deploy to DevNet as well, and then run on DevNet real quick. just so we can see what we're doing here. So that's what that looks like. From that account, we're sending one Lampert to the program account. So we can do that. It is writable. I can write to the program account. But I still think that that wasn't always possible. I think that used to be the same as if I had the system program here instead of the program address. I had the system program address. In which case, yeah, that's what I expect. That it says, now we have this error again. It's both invoked and marked writable because I invoked the system program to create this account. Okay, so I would need to do that in 2 steps. So I'm just gonna recycle that account here and not do this. And instead of the new account, provide this account. Easy. And that the provided account is not writable. Oh yeah, that's what we had with the system program. The system program just doesn't become writable. Anyway, so going back to this, I don't think that was possible. It certainly is possible now, but I still don't think that that was always possible. So let's restart our test validator and disable all the features again. Let's check. There we go. All features inactive. And now I'm really curious. If I now build and deploy, and I will need to deploy it twice because otherwise the other program doesn't exist. Insufficient funds for rent. Because that program account, I want to write to it, but it doesn't exist, that it's not a program account. So how did that go? Program ID, PR. Okay, now we also deployed to this address such that this address can be here. Let's try this. Block hash not found. Oh, I remember. With all of the feature disabled, a lot of stuff breaks. Shit. Okay, fine. Gotta do this differently then. Okay, we're running in version 1.18 now. Gonna do all of that again. Okay, let's try. No, that works as well. Provided account is writable. We don't get the post balances here. That seems to be new in the newer versions. But Solana confirm verbose. Maybe that gives me that. Yeah, no. Account 3. No, that's the system program probably. That's the new program, and that's 14.144 to 14.144.1. So that did work. I just wrote to that account. Wasn't a problem. Okay, kill it. Init an even older version. Okay, and now? I found it! I found it! It's here! It's here! That's it! That's it! I found it! Instruction change the balance of an executable account. In version 1.18, that was not possible. So I fail. And don't ask me which features were there. Well, on the other hand, sure that we can figure that out somehow. I'm gonna go back to 3.15. Okay, new chat. Wait, so you're saying that those are all the features? I think you lie. You're right, thanks for calling it out. It's very specific. I didn't actually recompute the diff. It's like talking to a child. We'll get there, we'll get there. I'm sure I'm faster if I would have written my own script. Or tell him to write me a script to do that. That does sound plausible. And that's just a handful of features that were added from version 1.18 to 3.1. So it can't be so hard to find, right? At least it understands what I want from it here. So my idea is I deactivate all the features that are new in this version since the version 1.18. Let's see. We kill our test validator. String has wrong size. Oh, damn you, you mother. That indeed has the wrong size. You made a mistake somewhere. You're missing a C. How did that happen? I guess ChatGPT is not perfect. It's just close. Okay, try again. There we go. Okay, so we are in version 3.15, but we have a bunch of inactive features. And those are all the new ones. So let's test if I redeploy the first, the second, and then run this. No, it's still writable. Shit, I still don't get that error. So maybe it really is not done by a feature. Maybe this change really wasn't activated through a feature, which would be super weird, but I can't explain it otherwise. I mean, I disabled all of the stuff that is new. Let's see how accurate that is. Line 4.6 to 508. So 48 features were disabled, 249 were in this list, and 190. It's still missing 10 features, it's still missing. So can I replace by line break? There we go. Long live the regex. Oh shit, I forgot something. I forgot a comma. No, this way. There you go. Love it. First list, second list. There we go. At least that's run by a computer. And here we have 68 features. Okay, there we go. You think it will get it? Yes. One last try. If it wouldn't work with those, but it did work with the others, then it's already pretty narrowed down. So if that would work, then we'll get there. So now I run this Solana feature. I've got a bunch of inactive features. And then Solana program deploy target deploy demo program, and with program ID this one, and then npx tsx call program block hash not found. Apparently I disabled the one again that doesn't allow the block hash to be found. I wonder why that is. Which feature could that be? This one seems suspicious though. Enable deployment and execution of SPPFv3 programs. It's got something to do with programs. Disable account loader special case. Remove checks of accounts. This one though, how about this? Remove checks of accounts is executable flag. I mean, that must be it. That must be it. You know what? I'm gonna do Solana test validator and disable feature this one, the activate feature. And with just this feature disabled, let's do all of that again. 1, 2, 3. No, also success. Okay, I figured it out now. Just took me a little bit of playing around, but I figured it out now. And just to recap, if I start my Solana test validator in version 3.1 and I deploy my program, deploy the other program, and run this, this works, right? So here I can write the one Lampert that I transferred to an executable program account. And to make it easier for myself, I'm gonna do all of those things at once. There we go. Okay. Now, if I go to version 1.18 and I start my test validator and deploy my two programs and then call this little script, then we get this instruction change the balance of an executable account. That was the error that I was looking for. That's why we cannot write to program accounts, or better said, we couldn't write to program accounts in version 1.18. And now here's what I found. We gotta go to version 2.3 of the Agave validator client and run this local test validator. Here, if I deploy and call, it works again. We get success. We can write to this executable program account, but now check this out. If I kill that validator and I deactivate this feature that we found, that feature being the, let me make this bigger here, that feature being the remove checks of accounts is executable flag, the one that we expected that does this. If I run my local validator with that feature inactive and I deploy and run, then check this out. We get instruction change the balance of an executable account. So now we have finally pinpoint the feature that is responsible for that. It is this one, the SIMD 162. We will look more at SIMDs in the next video. Oh, it's also by Alexander Meissner. Remove all checks of accounts is executable flag, which can throw errors in the runtime. Yes, it can. It does. It did. Basically, I mean, you can read through this, but basically he's saying this check is useless. Not only useless, it's downright deceptive and entangled with a confusing proxy account workaround in Loader v3. So basically, it used to be that meant that it's deployed and finalized and therefore read-only forever. But with the upgradable loader, there was a workaround, blah, blah, blah. And now it doesn't really indicate anything, neither that an account already contains a program, nor that the program is finalized. So basically, the is executable with the upgradable loader has become useless. And that's why they want to get rid of it. And it will be important for Loader v4 because Loader v4 will have it all in one account and no need for those proxy accounts that hold the extra executable. It will be all in one account. So that's why they propose to remove checks for the isExecutable. And then potentially later the entire flag can be removed. But that's part of the account metadata, so it might stick around for a bit. And here we see it. These checks of the isExecutable flag must be removed. Executable lamperts change during execution. And that is why we need a feature gate, because that affects how a transaction behaves. Once it fails with this check and without this check, it might succeed. These checks do not influence whether a transaction fail or succeed because they are covered by other checks. Thus, only the error code will change, which does not affect consensus. Oh, those following ones. Okay, I see. Okay, so for those, the error code changes. Should throw unsupported program ID instead. Okay, so they're changing some of the error codes as well. And also that must go through a feature gate because otherwise it's inconsistent. If you suddenly get a different error, that can't be. The only consensus relevant change is that it will become possible for everybody to donate funds to program accounts. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing here. That's exactly when it works. We're donating to that account. We don't see it now, but here we're donating another Lampert to that account. Anyway, yeah, cool. So we found the feature that is responsible for it. We had a look at the SIMD to get the background, why that changed. And now I still want to try and explain why that worked when working in 2.3, but it didn't work when working in 3.1. Because when I init 3.1.5 and I run my test validator with this feature disabled, so also here, now we're in 3.1.5 and we have this feature disabled, but if I here deploy my two programs and call the program, then we get this. Still success, even with this feature disabled. And that's why it took me a while to figure out that that is actually the feature that I'm looking for, because at first it gave me success still. I couldn't properly test it. I had to go to an older version, not 3.1. But in 2.3, I did manage to make that difference. So why is that? I mean, one assumption that I have, one possible explanation is, well, other features that might be active depend on that feature. Because obviously, loader v4, for instance, would depend on this feature. So even if I set that feature to inactive, it would still be required by another feature that I have active. And that's why I don't see that change. That could be one explanation. But, and that in my eyes is the more likely situation, once a feature is active on mainnet, so it has been activated, from that point onwards, we can basically treat it as if that feature was always there. Why is that important? Well, let's stay with this example. We changed that the isExecutable flag, we don't check for this. And when we implement that, we gotta have that if statement. If the feature is activated, then don't do the check. Otherwise, do the check. So we have this conditional in there. We need to load the feature account. We need to, do a lot with that. But once we know that the feature has been activated, we can throw that code out and from now on just say, well, just don't do the check. Because that's what we do when the feature is activated. Just pretend that the feature was always activated and it was never different. So we don't need to check the feature account. We don't need to check if we're in the epoch where that already makes the difference. We want to make our validator more performant. So therefore, the less we can depend on feature gates, the fewer of those checks we got to do, the better. And so that's why I think when they upgraded to a new major version, version 3, they threw out the code that was responsible for checking that feature gate because it's not needed anymore. You don't want to check for that old stuff. You just want to ignore that. The feature is now always active anyway. And that's why even if I set it to inactive in my local test validator, the code that checks for that feature isn't even there anymore. That's my assumption as to why this still works with version 3.1. I still get success here, even though the feature is inactive that is responsible for that. That's my best guess. And with that, I can conclude this video. So, features, eh? We learned an important lesson here. That you cannot bring back features arbitrarily. Or, well, bring back. You cannot disable all of the features as you want. Even though you can set them to inactive, doesn't mean that the functionality that we had before the feature will actually be restored. I think it only goes in the one way of activating new features, but features that have been around and that were active when this version was released, you might not be able to disable those anymore. And that's important to know. You will only be able to disable them by going back to a previous version of the validator client. You need to basically downgrade your validator client. But yeah, it would be a niche use case anyway to test stuff with old features that are not relevant anymore anyway, because none of the clusters will have them. Why would you do that? I don't know. But the more important thing is that you know how to test with all the new features active, such that you're future-proofing your application. You don't want to past-proof your application anyway. That's kind of useless. But for looking back how things worked back then, and to prove to myself that that was actually controlled by a feature gate, because everything else wouldn't make sense. I'm so glad that I found this now, such that I can rest in peace and be like, yeah, I was right about this. I'm not confused anymore. I did find the feature and I wasn't imagining this thing. That was an actual change that happened. So I can sleep well again. And you get this extra video just because it still bothered me. There you go. If you want more videos, I've got those. Next up, we're gonna look at SIMD 219, which will get us to future-proofing our applications. That's way more relevant than, what we did here. Here's another video that YouTube recommends. Make sure you are subscribed, like this video if you enjoyed it, and then I will see you in my next videos. Till then, keep your features activated.